It's somehow your energy still transfers, so it's been really good to warm up this morning with you, so thank you.
I love your necklace. Holy, it's beautiful.
You know what? I actually went and put it on because you have your Cando gift. This is my Cando gift from last year.
Beautiful.
From the conference.
Marissa,
yeah.
You look lovely. Have a nice panel. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Stan. Good morning, everyone. As Stan has said, my name is Marissa Lawrence. I work as the Senior Program Officer on the CEDI program based out of Cando. And I'm coming to you from a pretty dark and dreary Vancouver on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. As a Cando employee and a CEDI team member, I welcome and thank each of you for joining us here today on this very last day of the conference to talk about First Nation municipal collaboration and joint community economic development. So I just want to give you a brief overview. For the next hour, really I'll provide a quick overview of the CEDI program, and then we'll spend the majority of our time talking to our 4 incredible panelists and champions of the CEDI program. We'll have time for a short Q&A at the end as well. So I want to first introduce our panelists, and we're so grateful to be here today with our 4 incredible panelists. And yes, panelists, if you don't have your video on, please feel free to turn that on now. So with us from Shuswap Indian Band, we have Chief Barb Cote, excuse me, and from the District of Invermere, we have Mayor Al Miller. And with us from YKDFN, Yellowknives Dene First Nation, sorry. There we are. Yellowknives Dene First Nation, we have Jason Snaggs, CEO, and from the City of Yellowknife, we have Sheila Bassey-Kellett, who is a city administrator. And so welcome to the 4 of you. We look forward to hearing from you and hearing your perspectives in a few short minutes. But before we jump into that, I'd like to give a little bit of context for those of you who don't know the CEDI program. CEDI is a co-delivered program by both Cando, of course, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM. So as most of you know, Cando works to support Indigenous communities and to build capacity in economic development specifically. FCM has a mandate to bring together Canadian municipalities to speak with one voice to influence federal policies and programming. They deliver several programs across the country and also internationally. CEDI is currently funded by Indigenous Services Canada, and ISC has been with us since the beginning in 2013. So I'd like to note, I see some of our Cando board members here with us today. I see some of our ISC colleagues here with us today, and a special welcome to Jessica Sultan, who's the new Director General for Economic Business Opportunities Branch. And a warm welcome to FCM's newly elected President, Garth Frizzle. So welcome. These are all incredible champions of our program, and we thank you very much for your leadership. So CEDI really has 2 program goals. We work to support neighboring First Nations and municipalities to develop long-term and equitable partnerships, and also to increase capacity to engage in joint community economic development planning and initiatives. So many have heard me say this before, but I really see these 2 goals as 2 feet that walk together. One aims to develop and build the partnership, and the other aims to exercise it and practice it. So we've been working under these 2 goals or objectives since 2013, when the program started in a pilot. So 2013 to 2016, we engaged 6 partnerships across the country. And then we were refunded for phase 2, which is the phase that we're currently in, running 2016 to 2021. We're currently working with 9 partnerships right across the country. And those partnerships range, as you'll even hear from these 2 partnerships here today, in the number of partner communities, locations across the country, unceded and treaty territory, and differing levels of relationship and partnership. We're very hopeful to be refunded for phase 3 of the CEDI program, and we hope to be able to open an application and intake process in mid-2021. So I wanted to talk a little bit about really the model of joint community economic development that CEDI operates within. And really we define it by 3 main criteria. We understand that it must be direct, it must include direct and indirect economic benefits. So it should implement a shared vision for economic development that ultimately brings holistic prosperity to both communities. We know that it must be community-led, where local knowledge is used for local solutions. And this is really what the CEDI program does. It simply facilitates that local knowledge to come together and to be that stronger together. And it must be built on long-term partnership. This cannot be a transactional relationship. We know that. We know that through tough times and good times, the stability of long-term partnership is incredibly important. From many of our CEDI partnerships, we've heard of the benefits of First Nation municipal community economic development. I won't go into these in any great detail because I think naturally our partnerships will speak to many of these. But really, there are so many benefits to working together. And this is not a relationship. First Nation and municipalities are not mandated in any way to work with one another. And I think for that reason, it's an incredibly special relationship that can exist. Both communities are focused at a very local level about the well-being of their citizens. Of course, very differing jurisdictions and legislations, but a lot of really incredible opportunities and benefits can come from this collaborative work. At a really high level, the CEDI Stronger approach is really the approach we use with our communities, and it's also laid out in really great detail in our Stronger Together Toolkit, which I'll speak to next and is free for download. This is laid out here as a linear approach, but it is really not. It's really cyclical. We know that we need to start with building relationship, connecting. We need to grow that into shared visioning and an understanding about how and on what we'd like to work together. We need to go through a shared decision-making process, and then we need to act. But as we all know, often, in any one of those processes, we're coming back to connecting. We're building on that relationship. And as I said earlier, those two goals are really meant to be there to walk side by side. And this is really based on an evidence-based approach. This is built from communities. This is built from partnerships. And so it's really a practice of that evidence-based approach. Next, we have the Stronger Together Toolkit, which I've referenced. And again, this is free for download to anyone, available in English and French. It does provide a detailed step-by-step guide to initiating and managing these partnerships. Includes tools and templates and a lot of case studies which help to bring the work to light. We're really proud. Over the course of the last several months through the pandemic, we've been able to create 3 new tools, and we're really excited about these because we really think these are lessons learned from our past few years and areas where we've seen a real need for information and knowledge. And so the first really focuses on identifying the differences between First Nation and municipal economic development organizations in all the formats that they can take and the opportunities for collaboration. The second really is a very practical tool that looks at creating a joint working group for First Nations and municipalities. And you'll hear our panelists speak about their joint working groups. This tool also creates includes a number of templates which are available for download as well. And the last one is really in direct response to all that has happened through the pandemic, which is the Economic Recovery and Resilience, a guide for First Nation municipal collaboration. Some of you may have joined us yesterday afternoon as my colleague and I discussed this tool. It will be released November 9th, so keep an eye out for that. And lastly, I just want to say there are many ways to stay engaged with CEDI if you find this work interesting, if you're looking for tools or resources. Feel free to reach out to me as well. You can find my information through the app or through Svetlana. Again, we have our toolkit. We keep a list of financial resources available for communities to do this work, updated on both FCM and Cando websites. We highlight our phase 2 community profiles so that you can learn about what the current partnerships are working on. Of course, we have our newsletters. Our Facebook is really an incredible way to build and contribute to this collaborative network. So you'd need to search First Nations Municipal Collaboration Network, and we'd be pleased to have you join us. Lastly, because we're going into what we hope is a refund with Indigenous Services Canada, we would love to know what you would look for in CEDI tools and program. And so there's a survey link there. And when we share out this PowerPoint, you'll be able to access that. So that's enough about the program. I'm going to turn it over now to our incredible panelists. So we're going to have about 8 questions. We're going to try and keep it to about 4 minutes a question so that we have time for questions and answers at the end. And we're going to bounce back and forth between the 2 partnerships to share the perspectives. And so this first question is to Chief Code, and then if Mayor Miller, you'd like to join in and answer along with Chief Code, you're welcome to. But Chief Code, Shuswap Indian Band and District of Invermere joined the CEDI program in the summer of 2018. If you could tell us about the state of the relationship between your communities prior to then, it'll help set the stage.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy to be here. I come from the shared territory of the Denaha and the Shuswap people. And as far as the state of the relationship with our neighboring Invermere, municipality of Invermere, we had every year before COVID, we had the Salmon Fest and we had Indigenous Days. And so that was a time for community to come together. But as far as our teams working together, we didn't have a relationship prior to this CEDI program. You know, it's a small town where we live in, so, you know, we would see people on the street, but just, it was just a relationship in passing. One of the board members I did know, because I worked in the school system for 37 years, and he sat on the Board of Education. But as far as relationships, we didn't really have one. And, you know, in the past, through this, I didn't realize how distant we really were. And then working together with the District of Invermere, we came to learn a lot, but we didn't have any agreements together. We're not far from each other, about 2 kilometers. And so our community, you know, would shop in town in Invermere. And we have some big box stores in town. So, you know, there would be that kind of relationship as far as just shopping in each other's communities, but didn't really have anything joint as what we are doing right now. So, you know, as far as moving on, and then we started gathering, and how we came to actually be chosen for this program was amazing, because there's not too many people, too many groups that were chosen across Canada. So we were feeling really elated that that we got chosen to do this. And at that time, Mayor Miller was not, there was an election, but we were working with prior council before that. And then a few months into maybe not even 6 months, there was an election in Invermere. And then Mayor Miller and some of his new council came in, and we had an election as well. So we had different council members, although I was still the chief at that time. And how we came together as a group and learning, you know, meeting each other was, you know, I mean, it was like a new relationship building that we came on. And so, you know, when getting our working groups together, and it was amazing how everyone just was so excited about the program. And we just had a full buy-in from not only our council, but from Mayor Miller and his council. So that was amazing. And just getting to know each other, it was great. And having the monthly meetings, you know, it was like building that relationship, and it just was very interesting to get to know each other on a more intimate basis than we ever had before. So yeah, I don't know, Mayor Miller, if you want to add to that.
I think and welcome to everybody on the panel here, and thank you for allowing me to be a panelist on here today. It's a great opportunity and a great privilege, as far as I'm concerned, a great privilege. Certainly, I think Chief Cote has summed it up pretty well. Previous administrations, we just really didn't understand or know too much about, and certainly from my own personal, I do business on the reserve and have for many years, and very thankful for that opportunity as well. It's a great location, but straying off the main roads to the business and such, I think it was just a lack of understanding of protocol and where you felt welcome or not, or where you should be or not. But again, through this CEDI program, it's been quite amazing, and thankfully, we've really, I think, gone a long stretch down the road and started to really create a great relationship. So very thankful for that.
Thank you. And to build off that, Mayor Miller, maybe you could speak a little bit. So you've been in as a partnership participating in the CEDI program now for about 2.5 years. And I'd be curious to know if you can speak to how the relationship between staff and council members and maybe the larger partnership has grown, and what's contributed to that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, certainly over the course of the last couple of years, we have formed a tremendous working relationship with staff and elected officials from both communities. And I really think the key to our success has been the CEDI initiative. And the willingness for both communities to come together with no perceived notions and the desire to really learn from each other, others' governance and history, and timelines of how the communities got to where we are today. It's been very open and welcoming on both sides. And that's made it tremendously easy. Of course, this wouldn't have happened without a dynamic facilitator, and the dynamic facilitator is obviously Marissa, and she has kept us on track. She has she's tenacious. She just gets the job done, and so but you can't have one without the other. There was a real true willingness with council members from both sides, the chief and myself. I consider us good friends now. I really do. This has been a true relationship building. I can't stress enough, we would not be where we are without Marissa's agendas, the timelines, and her tenacity just to push through. This cannot be understated. And for anybody looking at going into something like this, you need to have somebody in place to do this. We're fortunate that we live in a smaller area, I believe anyway, where we've known each other or had an understanding of each other for some time. We are fortunate as well with the quality of the diverse staff that both of our communities have. Both communities have a real get her done attitude, and we're very fortunate to have elected officials that have the same attitude of let's make it happen. It wouldn't get anywhere if we didn't want to do it. So this was not always the case from years gone by. Both sides I'm talking here. This is, we just weren't there. When COVID hit us, that could have delayed things, and I think this was a real test of it. But the working group pivoted to Zoom meetings, and which helped keep things moving to where we are today, having signed a friendship agreement which will serve both communities for generations to come. And I personally have a large gratitude towards the chief and council and staff whom we have been able to work with to get us to this point. Projects will be accomplished and relationships will grow stronger as we keep moving forward. And I am very thankful to be playing a part of the CEDI program. I think it's a piece of history, and it will help generations in the future move forward. As Marissa was talking about in the first three things there, the connect, the vision, the decide with our with our people and their invested interest and the willingness to learn and go forward, those first three deals were quite easy to accomplish. And again, just thankful to be here, thankful to be a part of it, and the future is bright.
Thank you very much, Chief Code and Al Miller, and thank you for those very kind words for the CEDI program. A question over to YKDFN and City of Yellowknife. Sheila, maybe we'll start with you. And obviously Yellowknife's Dene First Nation and the City of Yellowknife only joined the program in late spring 2019. So just so all of you are aware, this partnership was welcomed in on an accelerated 2-year model. And your joint application was one of 45 in, I think, a span of 3 weeks. So we were overwhelmed with high capacity partnerships. And the community's capacity was clear from the beginning. And also because you shared a desire for the creation of a joint economic development strategy. So your capacity was high, but if you could tell us maybe a little bit about the state of the relationship before joining the CEDI program. And then we'll talk to Jason a little bit about how that relationship has grown over the course of the last 1.5 years.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marissa. And honestly, thank you so much to CEDI for the opportunity to be able to present with my colleague, Jason. And of course, before I start, I do want to say that we are absolutely honored to be located on Chief Dragi's territory, the traditional territory of the Yellowknives Dene. And today I do bring greetings from Mayor Alty and from City Council. Mayor Alty unfortunately wasn't available today to be able to join in. She really wanted to. We heard so many great things about the conference last year when a delegation from the city and the Yellowknives Dene attended and I believe presented. And we were so looking forward to being able to do so this year. So darn COVID, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to see each other face to face. So we have been, absolutely honored to be an accelerated model. And frankly, there is a long history of relations between the city of Yellowknife and the Yellowknives. And that history of relations hasn't always been respectful. Yellowknife's a very young community. It was basically started by settlers in the 1930s when gold was discovered on Chief Dragi's territory. And so there were some things that were done that were quite egregious to the Yellowknives, who were traditionally located in this area, utilizing the area in different ways. And all of a sudden, boom, settlers come in and start to take over this area. And so the relationship has had its ups and its downs, very definitely. But certainly when the CEDI opportunity arose in 2018, we, of course, at the City of Yellowknife have a very strong interest in making sure that we can have a really robust and really resilient economic basis. We've been non-renewable resource based for a long time. We recognize, though, as we've been making a segue into other areas, particularly things like tourism, where Aurora tourists have been certainly on an exponential growth path over the last 15 years and really becoming much more prevalent. We realized when the opportunity came up that our economic interests and the interests of the Yellowknives are very much aligned in many ways. So we're like a Venn diagram. There's some things that we are interested in, and we know there are some things that the Yellowknives are interested in. Where those intersect is where we thought that the CEDI opportunity has been absolutely perfect timing on that. At the same time, we were very fortunate that with our leadership, we have a mayor and council that were very much wanting to collaborate. We see that the two chiefs from the Yellowknives were very, very keen to collaborate along with council as well. So we had this sort of perfect alignment. And certainly Jason and I have been in our respective roles for 2 to 3 years, recognize that the two of us being able to work together solves a myriad of issues and problems and can actually act to amplify the resonance and what's important for both our communities when we speak together. So we've had a memorandum of understanding in place between our two communities that dated back to 2001. And it was a little bit erratic in its implementation. Sometimes, depending on who was in what seat, there was more interest than not. But certainly the CEDI, the opportunity to align through CEDI has been able to reaffirm and align with many other initiatives, including a refresh and a renewal of that memorandum of understanding that speaks to acknowledgement of that we are settlers on Chief Dragi's territory, acknowledgement that this is the unceded territory of the Yellowknives. We want to bring as much support as we can to the inherent right of the Yellowknives to seek their Indigenous rights agreements that they're negotiating right now with the Government of Canada and the Government of the Northwest Territories. But in that context, we want to see what we can do to be respectful and work together. So CEDI has really reinforced that positive, high capacity relationship and partnership that we can work together to amplify our voices. And we've had some fun along the way. CEDI has been, I think one big lesson we've had is when there is an opportunity to work on really fun, interesting projects. CEDI, of course, is one. We had a lot of fun, I think, working collaboratively on Hockey Day in Canada in February of 2020, where our combined communities were profiled at that time. And we got a lot of airplay around that. And it was really amazing to be able to see the Stanley Cup in Detta, the traditional community for the Yellowknives, to have the Chiefs, who are really big hockey buffs, I think Jason can attest to that, be really, really active in this and taking a leadership role, which was a really wonderful way for us to showcase to the rest of Canada how closely we work together. So CEDI is one of those positive opportunities for us to be able to work collaboratively. And it's been something that we've learned a lot about each other from as well. The CEDI workshops, and I will be 100% truthful on this, and Marissa, thank you for all the leadership you and the CEDI partners have given to organizations as we work and governments as we work together on this. I'll be honest, the first time we had a CEDI workshop, it was at a particularly busy time of the year, and I thought, oh my goodness, a full day, really? You know, maybe we'll be able to speed things up and cut it short and let's move on. But what became really evident was the incredible value of this. And I think that feeling of, gosh, I got a lot of things to do back on my desk. Can we speed it up? It wore off within the first hour. And the investment in the relationship was astonishing. And one thing in particular that really resonates with me was one exercise was to separate the City of Yellowknife representatives. And we had councillors, elected leaders, and some staff. And then the Yellowknives, Dene First Nations, some of the elected leaders and staff. We went off to our separate sides of the room and we each had a conversation. We were asked to answer the question, what's the state of the relationship out of 1 to 10? And from the city's point of view, we were like, this is terrific. You know, we're so lucky. We have this great working relationship. That's an 8 out of 10. And so, and the Yellowknives were having a similar discussion at the same time. So when we both came back together, both groups, to talk about, okay, how did you rate your working relationships? At the city, we were a little gobsmacked. We were quite taken aback when the Yellowknives said, I think this is a 2 out of 10. And we thought, holy smokes, really? And the explanation was absolutely illuminating. And so what the Yellowknives representative said to us was, we see that there's promise and there's hope right now, but there's decades and decades and decades of relationship that needs to be fixed, that needs to be realigned, that needs to be addressed and acknowledged as we work towards a more fruitful, productive partner-to-partner relationship. And that was a huge lesson to us. At the city, we've been taking the short view. Hey, the last 3 years have been just awesome. And it was absolutely, it was very, very important for us and important for our entire relationship building to hear that this relationship is seen in a much larger time frame. And that's the way that we need to see things. So that one example was just one part of the incredible value that we got and that we continue to get out of the CEDI partnership.
Thank you, Sheila. Over to you, Jason. I mean, maybe you could speak a little bit more about, I think Sheila started us in that way, but if you could speak a little bit more about how the relationship has grown and perhaps even where you can see it growing too and the strategies to get there. Oh, we got yourself mute there, Jason.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just want to say it's a real pleasure to be here with esteemed people. I recognize Chief Cote, Mayor Miller, and of course my friend Sheila. I'm here in Detta, in Treaty 8 territory, the home and the land of Yellowknives Dene First Nation, Chief Dragi's territory. as Sheila pointed out, when about 2 years ago, prior to getting engaged in on CEDI, Sheila and myself and our chiefs and Mayor Alty, who was elected at the time, we started to engage at a personal level and started to more or less begin a dialogue in terms of building stronger relationships between the city of Yellowknife and the Yellowknife Dene First Nation, who I must remind everyone is currently in the midst of settling their claims and moving to hopefully an EIP within the next year or two. And as we started to talk about, there was a lot of differences, a lot of history between the Yellowknife Dene First Nation and the city. And as Sheila pointed out, a different perspective in terms of how that relationship was perceived. But one of the things that we recognized was there was a lot more in common in terms of shared values, in terms of goals and objectives, in terms of the things that we can work on together that would benefit our entire region, and at the same time benefiting our respective peoples. So the first thing Sheila and I started working on together with Mayor Alty and the chiefs and the staff was on the revision and the signing of our memorandum of understanding in terms of setting apart, in terms of defining those shared goals and values. And one of the key things that came to light with the city administration and the city's council was their recognition of reconciliation and the city's desire to address the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action by adopting the recommendation. And that was done by the City Council. And that was a signal for us. It was a signal to YKDFN that here was a partner where we could build trust, where we could have open communication. And the city's attempt to address the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action recommendations was one of the key signals to the Yellowknife Dene First Nation members, our members here in the First Nation, to say, what can we do to work together? And out of it, there was approximately 12, 13 items that we, between Sheila and ourselves, our councils started to review in terms of the draft memorandum of understanding. And it started with everything from in intergovernmental coordination, land use planning and management, culture, heritage, environmental protection, economic development being one of the key items, infrastructure planning, shared and reciprocal services, capacity building, everything associated with that would benefit. And when we speak now, we speak of our region. We speak of the city of Yellowknife, our communities of Deta and Dilo, which are very in close proximity to the city, and at the same time as our council started to engage, our staff started to engage, and we started to recognize. We had, for example, the economic development officer of the city of Yellowknife working with our economic development officer. We had the resolution of our boundary between the Yellowknife Dene future community boundary versus the city. One of our communities of Dilo has been part of Yellowknife, within the Yellowknife boundary for a very long time, and now here was an impetus between both councils, providing direction to staff to start working on resolving those historical errors of the past. And one of the things that stood out for us was the level of open and honest communication between our staff and the staff at the city, as well as the attempt by the city, as well as by the Yellowknives Denny, to engage non-members and members in joint celebrations, joint for example, as Sheila referenced, Scotiabank Hockey Day in Canada, the NACA Festival, which is a celebration of the Aurora, that takes place in the winter months, in terms of looking at activities that we could work on together. And CEDI, for the economic development portion, CEDI for us became, working with the CEDI group, became a vehicle which we could drive that mutual economic development. And as Sheila has pointed out, since we started the program and having established the relationship prior to the CEDI program, it made it a lot easier for us to sit down together, council to council, staff to staff, to sit down together and work together on those shared values and mutual benefits going forward. So it's really been a journey, and Sheila is my friend. We share a challenge. It's not it is a relationship built on trust, but there are differences and there are challenges. But what we found, in particular, where we have common interests, and over the last 2 years, is we've had, for example, joint meetings with the territorial government to advocate for economic development, to advocate for a center for mental health and addiction, to address, for example, land issues between ourselves and the city. And what we found is as a team, we are stronger together, and we keep the territorial government on their toes, because they have never seen a relationship, and Sheila can attest to that, between the city and the Yellowknives Dene First Nation. In the past, it was divide and conquer. Now that we're working together, we are a force to be reckoned with when it comes to these mutual issues. When our chiefs and the mayor, of course, we have the nation-to-nation relationship with Canada, and we see the GNWT, for example, the government of the Northwest Territories, as an agency of Canada. The city is a municipality, but we are able to leverage, for example, our mutual strengths to work together for the benefit of our peoples of both of our communities.
Thank you, Jason. I just want to draw attention. I know that we have one question coming in, and I think it might. We'll get to these at the end. So please, if you do have questions, keep them coming in the chat box. But maybe both Sheila and Jason, you can take a look at the question that did come in from Trevor Morin, as I do think we'll get you to probably both of you address that at the end. But I'm going to ask now over to Mayor Miller, and then we'll go to Chief Cote to speak a little bit about the Joint Active Transportation Network Plan that you're working on together. But Mayor Miller, I think we've heard in different ways, and I know there was a specific question about the joint working group. And really, so just to give an overview of what a working group is by recommendation from the CEDI program, it's a collective of people, and we recommend that there's both elected representation and staff representation that sit at that table. We recommend that group meet monthly to ensure that there is regular communication. And what we really find, the strength of that is that there's not only then a shared table for when opportunities arise, but also then you're prepared with that shared table to address the issues. There's often terms of reference for these working groups, really helping to identify how we are in communication with one another. So to Mayor Miller, maybe you could talk just briefly about, yourself and Chief Cote are both dedicated working group members, which is incredible because it's given such a sign of leadership, I think, to your staff and a sign of how you want to be in relationship together. But maybe you could speak a little bit to how this working group structure has supported the partnership and relationship development, and what the benefits of this structure have been for your partnership.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And thank you again for that question, Marissa. The key to the regular meetings with staff and elected are really twofold. The staff will keep us on track, and along with our fearless leader, Marissa, and they keep us on track and consistent to the values that have been set out by the friendship agreement that we have agreed upon. Keeping good documentation in case of staff or elected turnover is very, very important. Obviously, this is a long-term venture, and so making sure that everything is documented well and moving forward. And we have tremendous staff on both sides that are keeping us on track. The ongoing meetings help keep issues rolling and relevant and communicated back to our communities, which is the other very important thing. We always have to be very transparent and communicative back to our communities. And it also provides a little time for further relationship building, and I believe dreaming for the future. You have to have some dreams and to build upon, and we dream about what will that next project be. We're looking at the project that we're signed up and ready to fulfill now, and it's a tremendous project. Our Shuswap territory and our District of Invermere territory are split with a river, the Columbia River, and so we joined by a river, and it's just what this project is going to bring is going to be very beneficial to both communities. We also have had the good fortune of our region's economic development officer, Ryan Watmow, and again, utilizing the regional economic development officer brings that expertise and perspective into the conversation. Extremely valuable. I can't state that highly enough. Ryan has brought a lot to the table, and again, just the ability to surround yourself with good people with diverse abilities is very important. And we've had that good fortune in our working group, and that all stems off with this particular project, active transportation, and sort of the first thing that we do is the symbolic part of it is the bridge. We have other interested parties already wanting to be a part of this project. So again, the monthly meetings keep us on track. Definitely very important because we all have busy lives in our own communities. And so it's not something that you can just be dealing with on the side of your desk. You have to have the commitment and the staff and resources available to really push forward, and having that facilitator incredibly important. And again, we're one of those lucky communities to have been chosen by CEDI to perform this. So it's been huge for us, and I'll roll it over to Chief Cote to add any further comments.
Great. And Chief, before you join in, I just want to specifically ask you if you can speak to, Mayor Miller has alluded to this joint active transportation network plan that your two communities are working on that will both physically and symbolically connect your communities over the Columbia River. And as part of your answer, I wonder if you can directly address the social and economic benefits that you foresee with this joint project.
Thank you, Marissa. Yes, so as Mayor Miller had said that we are separated by the Columbia River, and right now we have a very unsafe passage. So we have a trail that actually has just been finished by Greenways. It's the West Side Legacy Trail that is a bike walking trail from Invermere to Fairmont. It's about 14-15 kilometers, and beautiful trail. And they've got some stop off points. So this has been, and for us at the very beginning, it was, what are we going to do? What's joint venture do we want to do? We went as far as, let's build a casino, or so there were so many different ideas. And then it became, and I have ridden the bridge. I've walked it up. I've walked up it. I've rode at my new electric bike, and it is dangerous. We have a bridge that we have to go over that is not very wide, and then you have to fend off the traffic that's coming along the bridge, and then it goes up the Athelmer Hill, it's called, and then it's very steep. So what we looked at is how can we join our two communities together in a very safe manner that would bring not only our two communities together, but the world at large. Biking is a huge and economic, we have Albertans, people from all over the world that come here everybody's got a bicycle on the back of their vehicles these days. And so when we decided that was, what we were going to do, we looked at, okay, where can we place this? And so from our community, there is already a road that goes from the river up to our community, to Shuswap Indian Band. And we looked at it and went, this could be the place, because we want it to be an active trail that is going to be where there's bikes where, you can take elders on and you can ride them up. We wanted a nice, easy, accessible trail that would join. And then that's when, as Mayor Miller alluded to, is that so many other people wanted to get involved, because now once we join our two communities together, that actually will bring in another community, which is the municipality of Radium Hot Springs. And the trail already is halfway from a little town called Dry Gulch to Radium. And all we needed to do now is to join the trail from Shuswap to that trail. And so in the midst of all that, we have a golf course there that doesn't belong to us. It's leased out to Eagle Ranch. And so we had to get him involved as well, the owner, and he was excited. So the economic development for him, he has a beautiful golf course that overlooks Lake Windermere, and what a great stopping point. And then also there's some CP holders, certificate of possession, that will have the bike trail go through. Now that could be, we've got work to do, but certainly it is bringing people together in a really good, healthy way. And of course, exercise is one of the best ways, especially for mental health. And so that it has just exploded in our valley, as everybody wants to be on board with that. We have Greenways that's coming to us, and we can do some joint grant initiatives, which we're doing right now. There's so many deadlines coming up. And so it's been really the best idea I think we could have come up with, is to have this trail that not only brings our two communities together. We've looked at maybe even having an interpretive center along the way, so we can actually, bring our culture and knowledge to not only the community, but if people are on that trail, there's going to be signage that will tell, who we are. Because I think a lot of people, when I travel to Mexico, I want to know, I want to know how, the people there lived. And so that is something that we haven't been able to do. And I think this brings the historical value of the Shuswap and the Dena'ina people actually to the world at large, of, how we lived and we're still here. And as well as getting the exercise, the mental health, the just, meeting people on the trail. I've done the trail actually to Fairmont, not all the way, but you stop and chat and you meet people. So it's just really exciting. I know Invermere has some plans, some development plans on the river on the other side of the bridge. And so, that's going to be, some exciting things for our community and valley actually at large. So yeah, that's it's exciting. Really, really excited about the future.
Thank you so much, Chief Cote. And what you sort of alluded to is this cross-jurisdictional work, and also I think you're becoming a real example of how to be in partnership, in equitable and sustainable partnership together. And I think that will only spread through the Valley and through these additional partnerships. So thank you for your leadership in that. I want to really make a little bit of time for a question or two at the end here, but I really want to just go back to Sheila and Jason, and maybe I'll ask you to sort of share this question. There's sort of a question here you're working on as two communities creating a joint economic development strategy. I'd love to know, what have been some lessons learned of co-creating this strategy, and also maybe you can speak to briefly why now? Why is now a good time for this for your two communities? So Sheila, maybe you want to start, and we'll leave a few minutes for Jason.
Thank you very much, Marissa. And why now? Well, what's that great saying? There are two times to plant a tree, 50 years ago and right now. So we certainly the timing is right. It was overdue for us to undertake this work, and we're very pleased to have been able to start on it. One of the big revelations, I have to say, for the collaboration that the city and the Yellowknives have had, we were really, really pleasantly surprised, but a little taken aback to hear that ours is the first joint economic development strategy that's being done within the CEDI context. That was a revelation to us. And certainly, we came at it again from that perspective of the Venn diagram, where we each have our own interests, but there's a lot of overlap, and we see that. And what we've seen to be so important is that when we plan together and we co-develop and we generate some solutions and some ideas around some of either the challenges that we have or the opportunities that are facing us, it's that opportunity for us to really amplify our voices by working together. And that's been part of the recurring theme that we've seen. I mean, certainly we know when we've had, we've had 3 workshops to date since we've been on the accelerated program. We have consultants that we have jointly hired to do this work on our joint economic development strategy. But throughout the entire process, I think we've seen a couple of things that have come together for us, and some of these themes that keep coming back to us, so they're important enough for us to know. And it's things like, one of the most important things I think we've gotten out of this, and Jason spoke to this so well, is that building the relationship at all levels. It's not just that the chiefs and the mayors have a good working relationship and have lunch every month or anything like that. It's at that level. Jason and I connect regularly. Our staff are involved in different projects right now, everything from advocating for some of the key infrastructure that we need, like a water intake for our water system to ensure that the water supply for Yellowknife and the Yellowknives communities of Deda and Dilo is safe, to wildland fire mitigation, to tourism opportunities. We're working together on so many levels, politically and at the administrative level. The other themes that we've seen is that business attraction and investment are key to the future. And we are pretty lucky to be located in this area. We are, Yellowknife is the capital of the Northwest Territories. We're a vast territory. A lot of non-renewable resource development has happened over the years. There's renewable resource development opportunities as well, tourism, different kinds of things. And so we know if we work together in forming a regional approach on things, that's going to really be an important key to our future. Sharing authority and recognizing that we need to step back and honor and respect. There are times where it's very appropriate that the Yellowknives take the lead and we are there to hold them up, and vice versa. We've seen that, and that's worked really well. Jason mentioned that we've been collaborating and approaching different orders of government with different kinds of initiatives, making our case known with a unified voice. And that's certainly, that sharing and being seen to be partners has been a formidable tool. And Jason was right about this. And personally, I worked 25 years in the government of the Northwest Territories, and I saw that there wasn't always unity amongst First Nations and municipal governments. And so to have us come together is, it's pretty daunting for the other orders of government. And I think it's very impressive that they see that we're speaking together and we're not competing with each other. We're working really together. And that the final thing, the theme that really seems to have been so important that we've seen, is that social well-being is just as important as economic well-being. So it's a very holistic approach. And that's been something that the Yellowknives have certainly reaffirmed for the city, because sometimes we can be very directive in terms of what's the great economic driver here? How can we make money? How can we make good, get more money in people's wallets? Isn't that terrific? It's the holistic wellness. And I give full respect to Chief Sangris and Chief Betsina and to Jason and the entire team around that reaffirmation. And sometimes we lose sight of, I tend personally lose sight of that. And that's been such an incredible theme that's come back repeatedly that I know that is something that we need to honor if we are going to make joint economic development differences together in our region. I'll turn it over to Jason. I know he'll have lots to say.
For the Yellowknives Dene First Nation, why now, right? When Chief and Council met in 2019 in the spring, we started working. We knew that we wanted to build a stronger relationship with the city, but we started to work on our own strategic goals and vision by setting out a roadmap. There were several studies that have been done on a community readiness study, an economic readiness initiative. There was over 158 initiatives that people had talked about in the past. And when the chiefs and myself, together with council, we found that we were always boiling the ocean. There were projects that were unrealized. They were very excellent and they're still relevant. But we said, let's work together to pare that down. And there were three things that came out of it. One was governance. One pillar was governance. The other was invest in our people. And invest in our people encompassed training, economic development, education, ensuring at the end of the day that we could invest in wellness and ensuring that for our economy, for entrepreneurs to be developed, for people to participate in the economy, they had to be well. So we looked at it from a holistic perspective when it came to investing in our people. And then the third pillar had to do with our language and our culture and our traditions, and ensuring that we could not only revitalize our language, which is the Tatsutin language, the original language of the people who are here, who are the Copperknives Indians, the first miners in this territory, and how do we ensure that we when people come to this territory, when they come to the territory, they know who the Yellowknives Dene are. They've been here. They will continue to be here long after I'm gone, and at the same time ensure that we preserve that culture and we can share that with people. And one of the key areas that came out of it was tourism, right? And through the CEDI program, the city and ourselves have been working on joint initiatives, looking at interpretive structures within the city, for example, changing our stop signs, as simple as our stop signs in the Willowday language in English, for example, recognizing streets, the names of streets, changing the names of streets to recognize those prominent individuals that have lived here for time immemorial, for example. And one of the key things about it is, as we're in the midst of settling our claims and moving to our agreement in principle, one of the key things that the First Nations recognized is we have to plan for the future. We can no longer be react to mineral development, react to things that are happening in the community. We have to work, we have to plan, and we have to work together. And in this case, work together with the city to realize some of our goals and objectives that are of mutual benefit for the city as well as for the Yellowknives Dene First Nation. One of the key things that Sheila spoke about was infrastructure, for example. The city of Yellowknife has a water line that was established way back when. It's coming on 50 years old, needs to be replaced. It's in Yellowknife River. And this source of water provides water for all of our communities, for the Dilo, Deda, as well as the city. And we supported, the city applied for funding from Infrastructure Canada. They were able, and we supported that application, and they were able to get 75% of the funding, and the territorial government is still to contribute 25%. However, what we recognize is if we had started working a little bit earlier, if it was applied for by YKDFN, we as an Indigenous First Nation could get 100% of the funding that would support this infrastructure project. So so even today, as we work on projects that are of mutual benefit, for example, we're looking to have a water line. We're looking to bring pipe-borne water. Right now, it's truck-borne, but we're looking at implementing pipe-borne water in our community of Deta, for example. We are working in collaboration with the city and our engineers to develop a plan to have a pipeline come across the Yellowknife Bay to Deta, which will provide that water. And at the same time, working with the city, we're working on fire smarting. Not only are having our members participate with the city teams in fire smarting the city of Yellowknife, but also our communities of Deta and Delo. So at the end of the day, it comes down to a partnership in action. And I think when I listen to the mayor and Chief Barb, it's taking these plans and turning them into a reality. And that's where you win the confidence of people. That's where you show true partnership, where you also show reconciliation in action. So in the short term, even during COVID-19, and as the mayor said, as Mayor Miller said, this is not a side of the desk item. This requires a concerted effort where we have our economic development officers in both the city and staff within the city and the Yellowknife Dene working on these projects to ensure at the end of the day we do realize the benefit that comes out of it. You know, one of the key long-term goals, if anything that comes out of this partnership, and with the great facilitation of Marissa and her team, is we would have built a relationship that will last, that can be built on. It's a foundation. I see it as a foundation for us to, whether or not another chief and council is elected, whether or not the city administration and a mayor changes, it is built on a solid relationship that can be built to ensure that mutual shared values, mutual benefits are realized for when it comes to the economy, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to any project that we work on going forward that will support the people within our region. And once our claims are settled, we always said it, once our claims are settled, right? We have selected land within the city of Yellowknife. They have recognized, for example, we have a land quantum when it comes to interim land withdrawal. And another example is where the city is now, we have a meeting set up next week, for example, where the city is revising its zoning bylaw, and where we can work together, whereby areas that we've added to our quantum in the past can now be zoned differently, so we can use that quantum elsewhere for the benefit of the people of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation. So in the case of the city, they're looking at protected areas that has traditional knowledge, be it grave sites, be it sites of religious value, for example, that are no longer going to be part of our quantum as part of our settlement, but are going to be part and parcel of the city's zoning strategy moving forward. And that's true collaboration. That is true building a partnership and strengthening our relationship that's built on for the future.
Thank you so much, Jason. Such incredible wisdom from all four of you. And we're just so incredibly grateful that you're all willing to take this time. I hope that we answered the two questions. I think you did. One question was specifically around TRC recommendations, specifically in reconciliation, and a question there around the benefits of short-term and long-term. And I think you each in your own way spoke to those things. So I'm cognizant of the times, but Lana told us we were going into a break, but this is, we had a little bit of bump time. So I thank everybody for your active listening and for your contributions. Chief Cote, Mayor Miller, Sheila, and Jason, just incredible. And I really want to recognize there's been a lot of love given to the CEDI team. And I really want to recognize my colleagues, both current and past, who are still with us, but are no longer a part of the team. So Helen Patterson, our program manager, of course, and our past delivery team members, Tanya Taranjo and Josh Renier, who also worked directly actually on both of your partnerships. And so, of course, we have our administrative supports as well with Carolyn and Carmel. And so big thanks to the whole CEDI team and the leadership of our two organizations that allow us to do this work. So big thank you to all of you, and over to you, Stan.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the CEDI panel. I raise my hands up high, even higher than normal. Thank you so much. And the relationship is key. And the only way to do it is by coming together. It is so wonderful. The work that you do is so important, and it's healing work. So thank you so much, Marissa, and the incredible panel. Thank you. And in terms of what's happening later on, so here we go. We're going to take a break. And then shortly after break, we have our next panel, and that is the Indigenous procurement. And we'll see you back here at the top of the hour. Enjoy your break, everybody. You got 22 minutes. Go!